for more detail. But now let's focus on the agenda in the UK. The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson will be making a series of phone calls to EU leaders today. In a bid to try and win support for his Brexit plans, he will tell them they must compromise to achieve a deal. The French President Emmanuel Macron has said the EU will decide whether an agreement is possible by the end of the week. Well, for the briefing today, I'm joined by our regular Swiss businesswoman, Cornelia Meyer, who's CEO of MRL Corporation. Good morning, Cornelia.
Good morning.
So give us your take on this week. What are the chances, do you think, of Boris Johnson nailing down a deal with the European Union?
It looks very dicey. It looks not. And yesterday, Krišjāns Kariņš, the Latvian Prime Minister, said on the BBC that he did not really hold up too much hope. And Antti Rinne, who is very important because he's the Finnish Prime Minister and Finland holds the presidency of the EU, wrote in a German newspaper and said, "Look." I think the EU summit will more be about discussing an extension than it was a non-starter. His deal was for the EU a non-starter.
Well, this is the point that Boris Johnson's been trying to make, hasn't he, in the conversations he's had, particularly with Emmanuel Macron, where he's saying, actually, we are leaving on the 31st of October. But then from the EU leaders' perspective, perhaps they're thinking about this law that's come into place in the UK, which demands an extension if a deal isn't agreed to in Westminster.
And I can't quite triangulate that, because on one hand, he has said he would comply with the law. But then he says, deal or no deal, we are leaving on the 31st. And we now had our Attorney General, Geoffrey Cox, saying he will be leaving if Boris Johnson runs foul of the Benn Act.
So it's very unclear, isn't it, how this week will go? But it's encouraging in some ways, Emmanuel Macron saying that actually we'll work really hard this week to discuss the proposal put forward by the UK.
But you saw Leo Varadkar's drop-down menu where he said, well, this is from an Irish perspective, this is a no-go. And you saw all of the EU leaders saying, we are backing Ireland. So this is very difficult. And what actually makes my heart sink a little bit is that they didn't go in the tunnel. They didn't over the weekend. Boris Johnson said they should negotiate further. They said, no, we're having the weekend off.
OK, well, there's more to talk about later. Thank you for now, though, Cornelia. Cornelia is back for our news briefing and we'll be discussing that story further and